We're joined in studio by Chris Dixon O'Mara, the author of a new book celebrating the remarkable success of Kilrush Shamrocks during the 1970s. The book revisits the club's golden era when Kilrush Shamrocks achieved an unprecedented 5 senior football championship titles in a row, a feat that's never been matched before or since. The book is called Lords and Masters, celebrating Kilrush Shamrocks' historic 5 in a row from 1975 to 79. It's in a very impressive hardback, and I love that it's a kind of a long sideways shape to it as well. And delighted to have Chris Dixon O'Mara in studio. Chris, good morning to you.
Morning, Alan, thanks so much.
Congratulations on the book. It looks very, very well, and I'd say for people of, I was going to say for a certain vintage in Kilrush, but I'm sure maybe younger people who've heard all the stories of this team, this is a way to discover more about them. Tell us about your own connection with Kilrush on this particular side.
Yes, Alan, thanks so much. Yeah, so I played with Kilrush throughout underage football and then senior football into my 20s, and would have had great respect and admiration for the club and its history, but I didn't actually know that much about it. And I suppose a couple of years ago, we were approaching the 50th anniversary of this period in Kilrush's illustrious history, and I kind of realised how little I knew about the club's history and this 5 in a row success. I knew they won 5 championships, I knew some of the players, but that was about it. So I kind of started to learn more about it, and I kind of went to Seamus O'Reilly's book, The Club Scene, and he kind of covers year by year the Clare football hurling championships, and really kind of sparked my interest. So at the time I was updating our club website, and I said, I'll do an article on this. But the more I uncovered, I went looking at the Clare Champion archives, and once I started speaking with people in town about this kind of initiative, the book really came to life, and I knew from then an article wouldn't do it justice. It had to be kind of told through a book, and so that's kind of what started out on this journey, really.
And I often think with certainly, I suppose any book, like sports stories as well, if you're, I guess, the first person to put it out there, that always helps as well. If you discover a topic that interests you and you look around, you go, there haven't been any previous publications on this. Yep. Is this the first book, or I suppose publication of any type, that has delved into this much detail on this team and their history and the story? Yeah, no, it's a great point. Look, the idea came to me about 2 years ago, and I was kind of trying to talk myself out of it. I had a young child at the time, and now we've got 2, and definitely wasn't time-wise wasn't the right time. Multitasker, fair play to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was trying to talk myself out of it, but the idea kept coming back to me. It just wouldn't leave me, really, to be honest. So I kind of knew that it's something that I have to move forward with. In 1975, when they won the first championship, a magazine was published by Tom Prendeville at the time, and that was a really good source of information firsthand. That was from that period, but it was a magazine that covered 1 year, and they're tricky copies to get a hold of now. So I knew something more updated needed to be done, and that covered the 5 championships that had been won.
So give us a sense, Chris, of what, I was going to say what made the side so special. We know what made them so special, winning 5 in a row, unprecedented, but how did that happen? Was it, brilliant management? Was it just a brilliant group of players coming together at the right time? Did they have a couple of years of heartbreak and, continue progression before they got that first one in 75 and it just rolled from there? Or is it a kind of maybe a combination of some or all of those elements?
Yeah, Alan, you're actually ticking all the boxes, really, to be honest. That's kind of...
It's fair, I read this already.
Yeah, honestly. That's really how it came about. So this team, in 1962, Kilrush won their last senior championship, and they would go on a drought of 13 years, which for the club was a very, very long time. So there's a lot of hurt, a lot of heartbreak. They lost 3 championships in that time as well, in 67, 66, 67 and 1970. So a lot of the players on that team, especially younger players, they thought that they were never ever going to win a championship, and so coming into the 70s, they had really tough years from 1970 up to maybe 1974. But what was happening at that time as well was this underage teams that were coming through in the 60s and the early 70s that were winning everything all around them, under 14, under 16s, and they were incredibly confident, incredibly talented. They knew nothing but winning. So they kind of came into this panel in around the 73, 74 mark, really confident. And what else happened was that probably the greatest Kilrush footballer, from what I can tell, based on the interviews that I've had, Brian O'Reilly, came back to Kilrush. After he finished school, he went up to Mayo and played with Ballina. But in 1973, he came back to play with the Kilrush Shamrocks. And he brought an incredible standard. He'd played in National League finals with Mayo in the late 60s, early 70s, and he brought a huge standard. And then the final piece of the puzzle was Raymond Clancy was appointed manager in 1973, and he had an obsession with Kerry football, and so was probably the most frequent patron of the Tarbert Clymer Ferry, over and back watching training and matches. So when you had these talented young players, you had Brian O'Reilly coming back, raising the standard on the pitch, and you had Raymond Clancy bringing in what Kerry were doing to a West Clare club, and you also had the hunger of those players who had kind of through the 70s and through the 60s and 70s who had lost a lot. When you brought all of those factors together, that was really what I was trying to answer, was how did this come about? So the story isn't just about the 5 in a row, it's about like all that hunger and that heartbreak that kind of came before it.
They say, Chris, you should never judge a book by its cover, but I'm going to try and judge a team by the book's cover, because on the front of Lords and Masters is a picture of a couple of members of the team walking out onto the pitch, and I'm wondering if part of their success was their teak toughness, because this looks like a hardy bunch of men who I'd say took no nonsense.
Absolutely, yeah. Once I saw that photograph,
the most polite way I can say putting it.
Absolutely. Once I saw that photograph, I knew that was going to be the cover. The minute I saw it, the determination. That's just the cover photo is in advance of the 1979 final against Doonbeg for the 5 in a row. And was a steely determination to rise, and they were really dedicated.
This fella's gritting their teeth and everything, and maybe that's because they knew it was an unprecedented 5 in a row was on the line, and they weren't going to let that opportunity pass.
Absolutely, and also they were playing Doonbeg, so there was a heated rivalry there. So there was no need to add any fuel to the fire for this match. But they were incredibly determined, disciplined. A lot of those players would have been living in Cork and Dublin, Galway, Mayo, and they were travelling down for training and matches at a time when there was no motorways. Some of them didn't have cars, so they were
real commitment.
Yeah, absolute commitment, and the training was dogged. Raymond Clancy brought what they were doing in Kerry to Kilrush. The runs were intense. They were running up these hills in Alvaru, and anyone that's familiar with Kilrush or Kappa will know these hills. They're very, very steep, and these players were running up them at an unprecedented level. Another factor that brought success to this team and why they were so good as well was they would travel over and back to Kerry, playing teams there in the 70s, and at the start they were getting hammerings. There was no doubt about it. They were losing matches by 20-25 points, but the gap was closing, and after a couple of years they were beating those Kerry teams in those challenge matches, and because of that fitness they went out with a huge level of confidence in those championship final matches.
Fair play. That's it's going to be a fascinating read, be it for people from Kilrush who lived through this period, or young people who've been hearing all these great stories. And I'd say for some of the fellas in the team that will appreciate that something like this has been put together as well. Yeah, absolutely. No, they certainly have, and I've met with many of the players through this, and that's been an incredible honour, like to sit down in these people's living rooms and chat with them or over the phone. Also, another part, probably the greatest honour of the book has been, some of the volunteers, the supporters and the players have passed away. So it was kind of honouring their legacy and getting to speak with their family members, be it their wives or daughters or sons, about those players or those supporters or volunteers. So there's sections in the book that kind of look at these, I suppose, what people might think just your ordinary people that you see in town who would have gone to the matches or who would have quietly dedicated their time to the club fundraising or supporting underage teams. This book honours those. It tells their story. It has fantastic photographs in there that have been kindly donated by people. So honouring the players, but also honouring all the ecosystem that was around them at the time as well. Well, look, congratulations on the book. I mean, after 1979, generally speaking, what has Kilrush Shamrocks history been like? So it's been trickier. Many of these players stayed on as well, and it's to be noted that they won a championship in 81 and 87. That was our final championship that we had won. So things have been tough since then. We've had like a lot of loss of players. For example, myself, I played up until I was 25, and then I headed off to the States and the UK, and that's happened with a lot of players, where we haven't had that full team, but things are looking up. The team had a good win at the weekend as well. We're an intermediate, hoping to go back up to senior, and there's some fantastic underage teams coming through, so I have no doubt that they will drive on. All the proceeds from this book as well, is kind of worth noting as well, are going to that underage team, the boys and girls club as well. So hopefully we can raise money from this that will support those teams and support their success, and that just adds another legacy to this team's achievements. Well, look, fair play. The book, again, is called Lords and Masters, celebrating Kilrush Shamrock's historic 5 in a row, 1975 to 79. The book comes with it's beautifully put together. I'm sure there's some great stories, great interviews, and just great stats as well. I always love that in a sporting book. And there's a foreword by Jarlath Burns, the GAA president, as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much, Alan. And just to note as well that the launch of the book will be taking place on June 27th, Saturday morning at 11 a.m. In the Vandeleur Wall Garden, and that's part of their Vandeleur Festival that's happening out there. There's many great events over that weekend, and if you want to pre-order the book, that can be done on our website, www.kilrushamrocks.com.
Well, fair play, and hopefully sell a lot of copies of it, because you've clearly put a lot of blood, sweat and tears into it. Chris Dixon O'Mara, pleasure having you in, and congratulations again. Thanks
very
so
much, Alan. Thank you.